All
Okay.
right. So today is July 8th, Ortelius Architecture Working Group. Um, we have just a few people today. I think summertime, we're uh, running into people's holidays. So on the general meeting I think we're going to have one on Tuesday. We'll go ahead and figure out if this is a good time. Like you said, Jack, you had to rush back from work and stuff. We have a couple other folks that are running into the same thing. So we may push this back to a half hour or an hour. But we'll have to kind of vote on that at the general meeting. So that's
Okay.
just a heads up on that.
All right.
Um, some things that we have going on. Let me drop the link in the chat. Everybody has it. I think Tracy's assigned everybody in. Just what we have going on right now is on the service catalog side, we're working on uh, the UI piece. We have a good portion of the microservices for the back end have been completed or far enough along that we can tweak them. There's some new people that are looking for coding work, and I've been working with them to go ahead and get that some of the cleanup done to get everything kind of pulled together, packaged up and ready to go for the service catalog release in where I can pull it in for the front end and hook everything together. So some of the pieces on the service catalog that are kind of that we're working on is we're looking for a JavaScript library for this to present the Swagger JSON file, and I believe we have found one. Udikarsh is that's what you're working on, right? You're doing a POC on that.
Yeah, correct.
How's that going?
Yeah, that's going pretty well. So I have prepared something to show. So probably I'll show you after this meeting.
Okay, perfect. So I did add in the README to that. We did make a decision to go ahead and store some of these files, like the README file, the Swagger file, some of the license information in the Ortelius database to make just rendering and persisting things a lot easier than running into cross-domain URLs and having to deal with iframes. It just is going to make it a better implementation. Also, it gives us a snapshot of what those files look like at the time the component was created. So that's happening. Also on the backend side, on our Python library to go ahead and hook into like a pipeline like Jenkins, that's being updated as well to push those that data up into the database through the new microservice APIs. So that's kind of what's happening on the service catalog is coming along pretty good. Some of the other things that we are pulling in, and this is what I'm working on right now, is bring in all the licenses and the CVEs that exist in a container. So one of the pieces of the service catalog is to enable people to see what are the CVEs and the licenses that their containers actually has in it. So part of that is hooking in like a Cyclone DX to go ahead and scan the container, or Python safety to do some scanning. So there's a couple issues out there around running these scanning tools and being able to get the output from them and push that into Ortelius as part of the database. Now on that front, when we talk about like the CVEs, we're just going to provide a link to where they can go and get the real detail about the CVE, all the gory detail about how it occurs, how they hack it, those type of things. So right now we're just grabbing the CVE number, and we'll provide the link to where they can look up the details on that. Same with the licenses. The scanning tools will kick out all the licenses that the container has in it, and then we'll go ahead and aggregate those up and provide a link to where those licenses exist if they do. So that's kind of what's happening on that front. It'll be nice to have all this information together in one place. Let me see if I have it running. Yeah, let me share my screen real quick. Share screen. So here is a new component, the map of it. We've broken it, the detail was getting awfully long, so we split it into 2 columns. And then like here is the README file that we brought in. It's a markdown, so we're able to render it. There was a markdown library I found that allows us to go ahead and render it, format it in the little box here. And then the Swagger piece will get plopped in here, and we'll render the Swagger. We'll have to play with this to see on the size, from a UI perspective. And then we're bringing in the CVEs and the license consumption. That's going to be at this point. So that's kind of what's happening there. We did move some things around. Some of the mapping got moved down to the bottom here. So we'll have to kind of play around with where we need things. One of the last architecture calls we had was talking about creating some ways to navigate. So if you wanted to have get to the CVEs, you'd have a tab, a button here or something that'll jump you down to that. Also, there was talk about making these collapsible rows. So you could collapse this row to get it out of your way as part of that process. So that's just because we have a lot of data, and we're going to be adding more as we go to this page. One of the things that people did not want was tabs. They wanted everything on one page, and the vote was to do the collapsible sections as part of the navigation. So that's kind of what's happening on the service catalog piece. It'll be nice to have all the detail that we're going to be able to grab for a container, and the main focus is on containers, and not worrying about like jars or ears or war files for all like the Swagger UI. You could upload it. It's not going to hurt anything. But it is our primary focus. I'm sorry, for the CVEs, we're going to be focused on what's in the container, not like what's in a jar file, for example. The Swagger will actually work for like a jar file or WAR file, as well as a container. That's just an extra file that's going to be in the repo. Some of the things that, if anybody has any other items that they want to add in, such as we had one of our friends who's working for Uber basically said that they look at SLOs and SLAs, that type of data. Not sure how we would be able to bring in a SLO into this and how that really looks. So if you see data that's missing for a microservice that we should be tracking, just go ahead and raise an issue in the Ortelius /Ortelius GitHub repo.
The only thing I see, Steve, that we haven't added there that I know people have asked about is a pointer to a secrets vault.
Okay. I will check on that one.
I vote for winning lotto numbers.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I could give you that. I just go to they won't be the future ones. They'll be all the past
Oh,
ones.
oh yeah. That'll teach me to be specific.
Yeah, I could give you a bunch of winning ones. I don't think they'll
Yeah,
help.
that was an awesome answer, by the way.
So that's kind of what is happening on that front for the service catalog. So, oops, let me get back to the document. Oh, there it is. So tonight at 4:30 Mountain Time we'll have another architecture meeting with the Brad McCoy, Amit, and a couple others down in Australia. They're working on the GitOps solution for Ortelius, how Ortelius and GitOps are going to play together. Also, Sergio's been attending those. So they've been focusing on the GitOps aspect of this. So if you're interested or if you're awake and interested, that's going to be at 4:30 Mountain Time today. We do record those as well, and I try to put the meeting minutes in as well. I missed last week's getting the notes in here. That's one of my to-do lists today. So that's kind of where we're at for the architecture. We don't really have any on the GitOps piece. It did come across on the Discord channel some discussion about Argo workflow. So and Sime was trying to figure out what that meant, because it sounded like it was a big overlap with Tecton. So basically it sounded like you're going to be able to run a workflow inside of Kubernetes, and which is exactly what Tecton is doing. So it's going to be one of those. I don't think it's going to affect us, the Argo workflow at this point. But it's just a heads up that we need to keep an eye on that space. Some of the things down the road that we talked about last time was around open telemetry and metrics gathering. So if I go back to Ortelius, let me share that again. So some of the other, for lack of a better word, boxes that we want to put out here is we want to put like a box probably with a big giant, number that says, 100% uptime, or, 0 errors or something like that. So people can understand the details around the health of the service. Now, the tricky part is on that, and some of the other data that we're looking to collect, is being able to take that view not only for what's running in production, but also for any stage of the life cycle, whether it's going to be production, QA, UAT, or alpha testing, or even what's happening in the developers world. Being able to have a view to tell us the health of those things, because one of the things when we start gathering that information, and people see it early on, that we're able to really get some traction and show some visibility, not only for what's in production, but help SREs and developer to determine if they have a problem, like in QA, what's going on. Did they just not turn up the correct number of replicas in the replica set, or do they have a transaction that's going, to the other side of the world and coming back? Those type of things we will need to capture. like I said, we're going to be adding some more boxes to do that processing as well. So just a heads up on that as part of that process. Any questions?
Can you scroll down? You were sharing, I want to see if you still have the blast radius in there, right?
It's at the very bottom. I just needed to stick it for somewhere for
Okay.
now.
All right.
So the blast radius is down here at the bottom, the dependency map.
Okay.
I just moved it there for now. We can move
Maybe the right place because it could be really big, so it's a better place for it to grow.
Yeah, and this one's a really simple. This
Yeah.
has
Just two.
Just two. And when we get into mapping out, when we look at our component set implementation, this will grow.
Okay.
Because the component set implementation we're going to probably use to map it out, we'll use a combination of the domains plus the component sets to kind of gather together services and kind of put like a logical point on the map that you can drill into. So, you know, if you look at like Netflix's microservice map, it's just a big giant Death Star, and it's just not readable. And we want to make it usable for people.
Yep. No, that's fine. I just was asking if it was still on there, if we took it out.
No, if anybody has a better idea where to put all this data, I'm definitely open to it.
No, the map at the bottom looks like a good place so it can expand.
Yeah.
So Steve,
yeah.
I'm curious about something with that. Can you make that hierarchical, or is it more of a, you know, like a mind map type like you have it now?
Right now, the relationships are showing, what we were looking at was the component is in the middle, and then the consuming applications are around the edges. So that's this point of view that we're looking at. Now you can flip it the other way where you have an application in the middle, and then you can show all the consuming services that it's using. So we can flip it any direction, and then you can get into an environment that stuff has been deployed to, and we can see the relationships of all the services and how they're interacting in an environment. So whatever lens, you know, whatever direction you want to point the lens, we have those slices. Now, like Tracy is saying, when the amount of data is gets, and you'll see this in the hipster store demo data, where we have like 14 services and it gets pretty crowded really quick. So I think that in the upcoming component set implementation, so a component set is where we can group tightly coupled services together, and that will be the representation. And then you can drill into that to go into the what components are in that component set. So it is going to be hierarchical down the road. And also with the domain driven design, we can bring in like the security domain, and you can have like the payment domain, and those will be mapped out as well. So you can kind of see from more of a logical view of how things are kind of organized, and then you can drill into that level as well. If you have any ideas on how to deal with a huge amount of hierarchical data, we've looked at a couple different ideas. There's a couple. The main ones that we were looking at was the D3S JavaScript library, and the other one is Viz.js, VIS.js are the two primary libraries that we've looked at for doing the rendering.
Yeah, I've actually used the first one.
Okay, so it's a hard model to, you know, one of the things that actually it sounds crazy, but when you look at a world map, and you have like, you can drill down into Africa or India, and you can do, then you can get into the states or the counties and stuff. That hierarchical from a world map perspective may work, where we create a world map of the services and you can drill down that way. Just the relationships, we're gonna have a lot of them. And that's the
Right.
tricky part.
What about something like the periodic table of the elements? Because, in the periodic table, you've got the metals, you've got the noble gases, and they're kind of related and they're together. And so you can see those relationships, and then you could drill farther down. That's just something that popped into my head.
Yeah, that's that one's called I think it's called an icicle hierarchy. It's either icicle or the sunburst hierarchy, where you can drill down any group that level. And that's where the domain would come in as well, to give you that high level grouping, like gases versus metals. And then you could drill into that from that level. So we are thinking along the same lines. It's just going to be how we can figure out the best way to communicate what we're trying to represent to people. Sometimes you can make something look really cool, but people don't understand what the hell it means.
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes fancy is not good.
Yeah. So I think that's about all I have. Any other questions from anybody?
Actually, I've got several, but I doubt that anybody but you and Tracy are really going to be interested in it, although they could hang around. But I've got a couple for you.
Go ahead.
Unmute here so I can talk. All right.
Oh.
So a couple things. First of all, my wife got me these wonderful earbuds, but this is only the second time I've ever used them. Is the quality of my voice okay
Oh, yeah.
for this type of meeting? Okay, great.
We can hear you perfect.
Great. So first, the software as a service link in the README is broken. I can't install.
Okay.
If somebody could get that link fixed, I could move forward and get a little bit more detail there.
Okay. When you find things like that, please go ahead and open an issue.
I did.
Okay. And so just to give you kind of lay of the land of on the back end side, or where we manage everything. So everything is managed off of, God, if I can find Zoom, there it is. So the main repo, which is the Ortelius/Ortelius repository, we put all of the issues off of that repository. So even though we have like 20 repositories for all the different microservices, if we find a problem like with a microservice, we report it against the main repository, just so we keep all the issues in one place. It's just from a project management, it makes it easier. And GitHub will allow you to go ahead and cross-reference issues and PRs across repositories. So that way we can have links in there as part of that process. So if you find an issue with the documentation, just go ahead and provide as much detail you can, which page it is, and go ahead and put the issue out there. And then there's a few folks out there that will fix the correct the documentation, or you can correct it yourself. The whole if you do make an update to the documentation and you do a PR, once the PR has been approved and merged, it'll automatically get built and deployed for you out to the website. So that's all taken care of in the back end for all, pretty much all the repos.
Okay, you might have to run me through that process once if we get a chance to talk one-on-one.
No problem.
So I can get a better feel for that. The second question I had, and I've just been like kind of ruminating a little bit about things from my perspective, which is the perspective of an end user and dealing with people who are not computer people.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if there is a place for a demo that talks about why you would want Ortelius in a completely non-computer way. And just to write it down, now let me preface this, because obviously I'm coming in brand new, and so I don't have any guide rails here. And so I could be way off. You're not going to offend me if you say, you know what, that just isn't going to work.
No, that's
I'm totally cool with that.
no. We always want fresh looks at this because we've been heads in the weeds so long that we miss things. Simple things like that are missed all the time because we're so low level from our perspective. So
Right.
yes, now Siddharth was working on or had a similar idea around a demo and being able to structure that into, I don't know if Tracy, do you remember if he was planning to do YouTubes or just like what was his thoughts on the training stuff?
We have not, Steve. We postponed all that until the summer's over.
Okay.
We're just working
Okay.
on right now 2 things: getting the governance body sorted out and then doing the podcast. But anything else, we just decided to postpone until people got back.
Got it.
Right. Okay.
So
So I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So tell me whether you think this makes any sense or not, because it makes perfect sense to me, but I'm me. So if you think about it, the universe operates with microservices. And basically, to try and put this in a generic way, I'm just going to use universe. But basically, there are a certain number of elements, and everything's created out of that. And some of those elements are related, and they've got, just a little bit different characteristic that meets a need. But the universe doesn't create a new service, a new element every time it needs to do something. And it uses the same stuff over and over. And to try and expand on that, to get people to understand that microservices are really a very logical way to deal with things. And kind of start there. And I have a document written up that I threw together just to kind of get my thoughts down about that. But do you think there's a place for something that is that far off of, the computer related stuff for people that, because basically in my experience, you got an awful lot of non-computer departments who will go, I really don't care. I don't need to understand, just do it, blah, 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 blah. And the reality is they do need to care to some extent. They need to know what's going on.
right.
Most of the time they're funding it, and it's a way to lay it out and say, you know what, you deal with this every day. This is not a weird concept, and it's not way out there. This is literally how you live your life. And put it in those type of terms, so that people go, oh, well, that's why I want it, right? And so, for example, just briefly with that scenario, Ortelius then becomes the periodic table of the elements, because that's your microservices. It becomes the laws of physics, because it controls how you can deploy those services and how they relate to each other. And it just stuff that everybody learned in middle school.
Right.
Right. So you got any thoughts about that? I mean, is that just too far out?
No, that's very similar to another way that we've looked at it. The way I've looked at it is also, yeah, and I kind of throw the map. If you the one thing that we try to bring in is the mapping of the services. So one of the another way I've used to explain it is around the planet solar system, constellations, galaxies.
Yep, that was part
So
of what I put in there. Yeah.
yeah, so if you look at just our solar system, so our solar system is an application, or it could even be just a version of a component, and then how that component has changed with the different functions being added. So back, in 1200, that they didn't know that Pluto existed, and you can actually see the versions of our solar system over time. So how our component, our solar system, which would be our component version, we have different versions of our solar system. And then our solar system is related to our star is part of a constellation, and constellations kind of build up into the galaxy. And then some of the harder parts in that metaphor is there's not a lot of sharing of stars. You don't have two constellations that overlap and share the same set of stars. So that's where that metaphor kind of falls apart. But we've talked about something similar to that.
Okay, so
So you're not that far off.
I'm not that far off. Yeah,
No.
dang. That actually makes me kind of happy because it means that I'm in with my peeps.
Yeah. So the big thing is when you think about this is everything in the Ortelius world is versioned. So you have a version of a component, and component versions are packaged into application versions. We are going to be adding in versions of an environment, which is where you're going to put the application version into. So everything's versioned, and then because we have these relationships, you get these maps of relationships. So those are the two main underlying concepts: is versioning and mapping.
Yeah. I bet you could put like a Hubble metaphor in there because, basically when you've got Copernicus looking at things and then you version it out to this is more detail and more detail and more detail. Yeah, that could actually work for some folks.
And then we have our alien mascot. And the reason why the alien mascot came about, because Tracy and I are in New Mexico, and we're famous for our aliens in Roswell. But also we have the Very Large Array, which does some really cool stuff down at looking at the cosmos. So that's just kind of a sidebar.
Yeah, well, thanks for entertaining me here for a sec, because I have to admit, when you're coming in brand new, I need, personally, the way that I think and the way that I do things, I have to have some of that information so that I can align myself and not feel like I'm too far off the mark.
Yeah. And then before I forget, so Tracy Syme is working on some Katacoda trainings for Linker D. So he is learning how to put together the Katacoda trainings.
Great.
So one of the things, Jack, that we're looking at is O'Reilly provides a framework for doing training material. So you could do like a little module, then you have a quiz to see how you did, that type of thing. And one of our contributors from Islamabad is doing it for another project, that software. So hopefully when we get ready, when we get into past all the holidays for everybody, that we'll be able to bring that in as well. The training in general, we like to structure, like a 5 to 10 minute little section to focus on stuff. So it's not like a 2-hour thing, it's just something that people can go through and get going on.
Right. Yeah, I've seen the Discord discussions overnight. That's one of the advantages of working nights is I can see those real time. And so, yeah, I was kind of following along with what was going on. I have to admit that I don't know very much about the details, but at least I could kind of figure out what they were doing.
Yeah. And if you, we have a really good bunch of folks on this project. So if you don't understand something, just tell them, can you enlighten me? And I'll be happy to.
That's awesome.
Any other questions? Oh. You still there, Jack?
Oh yeah, I'm here. No, I don't have any other specific questions right this second. What I need to do is I need to get that installation done so that I can start looking at the application itself.
Okay.
And move forward there. The only other comment I would have is about moving the time. And, you know, obviously you have to work with what's best for most people, but I have to admit that, you know, when you're working 12.5-hour shifts, that this meeting eats into the little bit of sleep time that I have. And if you then move it a half an hour or an hour, then that's even less sleep that I get. And so personally, I would rather be a couple minutes late to a meeting than move it any further than it is. Now, again, if other people can't deal with that, obviously I'm going to adapt.
Okay. We'll let you know. Like I said, we'll throw that discussion out there on our general meeting as part of that process. Udakarsh, do you have anything from your side, or are you good to go?
I'm good, Steve.
Okay, excellent. When do you think you'll have you said you're going to be able to show something maybe today on the Swagger?
Yeah, so do you want me to show here?
Yeah, if
Or
you
we
can show
do
now.
one?
Yeah,
Okay.
go ahead, show now.
Okay, so 1 second.
Yeah, I have a meeting with Sasha at 9 in 15 minutes. So.
And Jack, that might be something you might want to do as well. That's what we're calling our cohorts for learning really to the ins and outs of Ortelius. So that's just a hands-on kind of we call it getting started.
Yeah, so that we can fit into we have some like pre-planned slots, but if you want to just do some hands-on stuff to get started, just grab a time on my calendar that works for you that you're not sleeping.
Yeah, and there's one that's at this time, that's at 9 our time, Mountain Time, and then there's one on Tuesdays that is at 4:30 Mountain Time. So I don't know if either one of those fit better for your time schedule.
Yeah, Wednesday is my first day of the week, and so we work either 3 days or 4 days a week, you know, alternating. And so the Tuesday one would be the one that would be best for me.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just
I'll
think
make
about
sure
joining that.
I'll make sure you get the info on that.
Awesome.
Yeah, so like I have shared my screen. So is my screen
Yep, I can
visible?
see it.
Okay. So basically these files are the static files, so we don't need to change anything. So to render any Swagger, you know, endpoints or any Swagger files that we have, when I say files, the files can be in the JSON format or in the YAML format. We just need to change this URL. So first of all, let me show you how it will get rendered using this, you know, sample URL. So yeah, so this is coming from my local file systems. So this is that. And so here what I'll do, I'll change this URL. So yeah, this is the dummy URL. So I've changed URL to this. And when I save and refresh the browser, I'll see that getting rendered.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So that works in all three formats. So even if you have, you know, some files, you know, deployed in some servers, so that can fetch information from there. And if you have some files placed at local, so local containers or, you know, local systems, so that can render file from there.
Okay. Now on the go ahead and scroll down, and what do we have that? Okay, perfect.
So this is coming from the the sample URL. So whatever they have, done there, so that will come exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm not altering any information, any data here. So
All right.
schemas are coming from there. The endpoints are coming from there.
And then go back to the code. How is it being placed on the page? Where is UI? How are you placing it into the right place on the
Okay.
page?
Basically, yeah. So
So is there like a
this,
div it goes into?
yeah, basically these files has been generated using Swagger UI, which is a library, a JavaScript library. So that will generate you these static files. So once that is generated, you just need to take care of this URL, and rest will be taken care.
Oh, okay. I see right there on line 43. So 43 is where you're referencing where you want it placed on the page. So that's going
Yeah.
into that div on 34. Okay, perfect. That's exactly what I needed. So if you could send me, if you could zip this up and send it to me, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll do that.
And you could just email it to steve@deployhub.com.
Okay.
And I will add that in there. Yeah, this
So I
is
did-
gonna be very, very slick when we add it in.
Just as a comment, I'm familiar enough with HTML that if you had grunt work that you wanted done that, you know, is not worth a developer's time, like wholesale changes to something or, you know, insert text and stuff like that, please let me know. I'll be more than happy to take care of it for you.
All right. So it's steve@deployhub, STEVE.
Okay.
Yeah. And just take
Is
out
that
the
correct?
A, take out the A in the first name.
Okay. Sorry.
There, that's it. Perfect. When you get a chance. Yeah, thanks, Jack. Well, like I said, we'll on the like on the documentation. So all of our documentation is in Markdown and it lives in a repository. It is then put through a process that allows us to basically it's hosted through a Hugo server. So Hugo will take the Markdown and translate it into HTML for us. And then that's what allows us to go ahead and do a regular file-based process for changes. There's no like WordPress login or anything like that. So it makes it really easy to work through. Have you worked with GitHub and doing pull requests and stuff like that?
Whoops, sorry. I did, but it was 4 or 5 years ago now. And that's why I wanted a little bit of your time just to refresh my my memory and my ability to go through there, because it wasn't difficult, but you know, if you haven't done something in a few years, it's a little hard to just pick it right back up.
Yeah. So I'm going to give you a link here in the chat. Wherever chat went. There it is. So there is, so we split our documentation into two worlds. One is the contributor side, like how do you contribute to the project? The other one's how to use the product. So that was what I just sent you is the link to the contributor guide. And then there's the PR cheat sheet that will kind of help you walk through doing a pull request and stuff like that. It'll jog your memory.
Awesome.
And if you run into anything, or you know, just need some help, you don't have to just grab me. Just throw something out on the general Discord channel, and somebody will come along and help you. So there's you know, we have folks all over the world. Like you're watching everybody in India and Pakistan and Australia last night talking. So. And everybody's really willing to help. So We've taught people that have never done a pull request or done any changes. There's a person in Poland. He does a lot of our documentation stuff. So got him doing the pull request, and he's the one that actually wrote that pull request section from his experience. So all right, anything else? Well, thank you and stay in touch.
Awesome. Thanks for entertaining my newbie questions there.
No
Nope,
problem.
no problem at all. All right, thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, you too.
Bye.
Bye.